welcome you to Waterloo, Wisconsin, about 26 miles northeast of the state capital in Madison, for the season opener to the UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup campaign. I'm Steve Schlanger, pleased to be joined today by professional cyclocross and mountain bike racer Ellen Noble at the Trek World Headquarters, where this race is being held for the fourth time. We probably have our deepest and most talented field ever. As you take a look at some of the previous World Cup winners, Lucid De Bruyne, the reigning world champion, is here. Of course, Sanne Cant, the Belgian, a two-time winner in 14 and 15, 16, 17 and 18 as well. Marie Wurst, the seven-time world champion, also here. And the riders getting set for the starts. We had a chance earlier to hear from some of the top riders previewing this race.
Good memories of Waterloo?
Yeah, I won here one time, so it's a few years ago. I think four or 5 years ago now. But yeah, it's a lovely track, so I'm happy to be here.
It's amazing to be here at the factory, especially when you're a champion. It's even a bit more. And everybody's super excited, so do I.
Het deelnemersveld is redelijk indrukwekkend vandaag bij de vrouwen.
Ja, absoluut. Eigenlijk is iedereen er zo ongeveer. Dus het is wel het wordt een hele interessante strijd.
Wie hou jij vandaag vooral in de gaten?
Nou, buiten degene die ik vorige week al in de gaten hou ik vooral Marianne en Capablanca vast in de gaten. Ik denk dat dat wel de grote namen zijn die hier wel eens even voor de winst kunnen gaan rijden.
Ik heb er al eentje gehoord die jou vooral in de gaten houdt.
Oh ja.
Dat is de wereldkampioen.
Nou, die heeft vorige week een goede start gemaakt, dus ik denk dat hij er goed voor staat. En ja, het is cross, dus uiteindelijk zal iedereen op zijn plekje terechtkomen, denk ik. Well, during the road season, we thought about the planning of the winter, and then obviously after the World Championships and Paris-Roubaix, it seems a big step to cyclocross. But coming off with a certain shape, it's nice to continue this a little bit in cyclocross. And this is a trip for 3 World Cups, and I always like to race in America, so it's good to make this trip and try to do as good as possible.
Enjoy the ride.
Thank you very much.
You are very happy to be here in the US. You did have some problems to come to the US. What happened?
We were going on Tuesday, but some documents were not fine for me. So now I fly on Friday to America. So a few days later, but super happy to be here finally.
And not coping with the jet lag?
No, I feel very good. I slept good tonight, and happy to race.
2 years ago here, that was my last cyclocross race. So it has been a long time, and I'm very happy to be back.
Is this the start of more Jolanda in cyclocross?
It's the start of 1 week of cyclocross. I also do Fayetteville and Iowa the next week, but after that I will take a break.
And when will we see you again? Not waiting 2 years again.
Yeah, I hope not. But I haven't really fully decided yet what exactly I want to do. I think I will see how this race goes today and the next week, and if I feel really good, maybe I will do some more, and if I am last in the field, then maybe not.
Some marquee names here in Waterloo, Wisconsin on 10/10, the 10th day of October, and the first of 16 races that will comprise this World Cup cyclocross season. After this race and so many were canceled last year because of the COVID pandemic, they have come back with a vengeance. 16 stops across 6 different countries and so much continuous racing. These North American stops previously had been held in September, and then they would take a few weeks off before resuming the season in Europe. This year we have 3 North American venues: Waterloo, Wisconsin, Fayetteville, Arkansas, and Iowa City, Iowa, before the riders head over to Europe and then pick up racing the very next week, taking us all the way through the next few months, and then the World Championships back on U.S. soil at the end of January in Fayetteville, Arkansas. As the women and the top riders in the field being called up to the starts. Ellen, glad to have you aboard here. I know you'd rather be racing, but For selfish reasons, I love having you here with me on the show. I know you're a past podium finisher here at this particular race. What do you think about this field and these conditions that we have today?
Yeah, thank you. I'm super happy to be here. This is a great consolation if I don't get to race. I mean, this is the next best thing. This is an incredibly talented field, and I have to say, I'm actually really excited to watch. I'm really excited to be here and commentating with you because this is going to be an incredible event.
It's easier on the body to watch from here.
It is, but I have to say my heart rate is high right now. I don't know if it's being on the feed or if it's just watching them roll to the start, but I have all of the adrenaline going.
Well, we've got such a great field. This is the first race of the season. It's opening day for cyclocross, so a lot of excitement. And it's really a good day for racing. It's overcast, temperature right around 70 degrees. They had some rain earlier today, but the wind has been blowing. It's starting to dry out the course, so it should be relatively grippy in the corners. And for the most part, this is the type of day that a lot of these riders will like to race in.
Absolutely. The weather is incredible, and it promises a little bit of drama, at least potentially. So I'm really curious to see how the course ends up, because we know how it's going to start.
As always in cyclocross, the top riders in the field and on points are starting at the front. That's such a huge advantage. Here are some of the most high-profile names in the sport.
Absolutely. We have, let's see, we have Clara Hansinger, the American pride up front in the national champion kit, which is super exciting to see. We have Marie Wurst. She's former U23 world champion, former European champion, I believe. I don't think she's raced in the US before, so this is pretty exciting for us. Looks like everyone has dry tires to start. Probably have some mud tires in the pits. This is Yara Kasseline, also former European champion. Our world champion, Lucid De Bruyne, also a fellow Trek teammate, which is super cool to see. She had an incredible road season, so I think she's on good form. And Sonicant, of course. She's won here a couple times, and we know she's great in the mud, so I think no matter what happens today, I think she's going to have a good performance.
Sonicant, most recently the winner here back in 2017, same year that a certain Ellen Noble finished third and also on the podium. There were two Americans on the podium that day.
Katie
you
Keogh.
and Katie Keogh, right,
yep.
who finished in second.
That was a great day.
Starting at the front, so crucial because you get that whole shot around the first corner, and when you're at the back, you have to pass so many riders, which in this sport is so difficult to do.
You avoid, usually, hopefully, any sort of, big issues at the start.
The top 10 cyclocross riders in the world are in this field. It's the deepest, most talent-laden field we've ever had here in Waterloo, Wisconsin. So what a terrific way to kick off the season. 57 riders in all. 11 Dutch riders from the powerful team from the Netherlands. 14 Americans on the home soil today. And now just about set to begin this race in Waterloo and the World Cup cyclocross season overall here on this second Sunday in October in Madison, Wisconsin. They will have that long paved start leading to a slight incline and then a right-hand turn that they used to have a lot of crashes around at the beginning of this course. So a few years ago, they actually extended the pavement to make it safer at the start.
Wow. You can hear the heartbeat here at the venue. The tensions are high.
And away we go.
Looks like everyone made it into their pedal without issue.
Ellen, what's this moment of the race like when you're at your most vicious and trying to accelerate?
Absolutely. You just want to make it around this corner, honestly, and then you can really worry about everything else. But no surprise to see Magali Rochette drilling it at the front. She is a hard starter. I can't think of a race I've been in where she hasn't at least tried to take the whole shot.
taking that whole shot out there. She's got a whole host of athletes right on
Quickly
her
single
wheel.
file on this grassy area of the course. The first significant hill will come about a minute 45 into the course. So they have these turns early on and an area where the spectators can get a good view of the racers and see them coming around as they fight for position and kind of establish the hierarchy and the race rhythm, the tempo here on this opening lap.
You can see just how hard Marie Wurst's going with these gaps opening up between Fem van Empel and between Marie Wurst. This is a hard climb.
One of several flyovers on the course.
So this is one of the pro-only sections on course. Looks like Yolanda Neff's moving up.
Now, Yolanda Neff, what a story. The Olympic mountain bike gold medalist from Tokyo, who actually won the Elite Women's C2 race at the Trek Cup here on Friday. And this is the first run-up the Trek Factory Hill as the riders dismount, throw the bikes over their shoulders, and then run up.
Back on. I don't think anyone's going to be riding that section during the race.
Yeah, at times in the past, riders have tried to make it up by staying clipped in the pedals, but given today's conditions and the way the race is, we saw just about everybody dismounting there that last time.
Yeah, I think one of the only riders I've ever seen ride it is Sven Nys.
I wonder how he could do it.
Just pure power, just talent.
Yeah.
Marie Wurst is starting to open up a little gap. I know she has always come into these races with incredible form, early season form, so I wouldn't be surprised if she does a little bit of damage off the front today.
A continental champion from Canada, one of 4 Canadians in the field.
And Helene Clausel behind her is a mountain bike racer that I know. I was sort of hoping one of them would ride the stairs, but looks like everyone's taking this the much faster route of running.
Van Empel and Wurst completing the top 4 at the moment. They have those log stairs which are unevenly spaced on this course. They added those after the first year that they held this World Cup. Those were not an original part of the course overall.
I think this will be a pretty key section as the race goes on. Just outside of the frame, there's a pretty tricky corner that a lot of people were struggling with during pre-ride. Sana Kant rode it the best out of anyone I saw. She's an incredible technical rider, but I think it could be.
We have a couple of riders off their bikes here while others are kind of tripoding down there, taking one foot out to maintain their balance. And some gaps opening up back here through this wooded section. This is a course that is just over 3 kilometers in length. Takes about 7 minutes or so per lap, and we'll probably know about 3 laps in just how long the entire race is going to be. They time the laps early on. In case you're new to cyclocross and don't know how it works, for the women's races, they try to have a total running time of about 50 minutes for the race. So once they see a few laps completed, they'll get an idea of how long and how many laps they'll need to do to get to that 50-minute mark. So we will know in about the next 10 minutes or so just how many laps they'll do overall.
Magali with a little bobble off the front, but it looks like she's able to maintain that gap. She's really starting to open up on the field.
And some work to do for some of the top names like Marianne Vos, who is here, the 7-time world champion who came straight here from riding the first ever women's Paris-Roubaix last weekend. So she comes from one of the world's most famous velodromes on the road, straight across the pond here to Waterloo, Wisconsin to start the cyclocross season.
There's nothing that woman can't do.
I mean, she is incredible. And maybe the top cyclist of all time, if you think about it, across all the disciplines, man, woman, any gender, you would put her up against the best.
Absolutely. I'd also have to say, Blanka Vazcata finished 4th in Tokyo on the mountain bike and then was 4th at Road Worlds this year. And now she's here racing in the lead group of this cyclocross race. So maybe she'll be following in Voss's footsteps.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier, how we have so many of the world's top riders. And a lot of times they have other commitments. And in the past, these North American races were in September, so they conflicted with a lot of the major road racing, even the World Championships. But all of that is now in the rearview mirror, giving them the ability and a clear space on the calendar to come over to the U.S.
Absolutely. I think it shows that it's paying off to see such a competitive field and to see highly ranked riders in the chase group now. I think it really shows that this weekend is well located.
So we've got Rochette, Lucid De Bruyne, and Marie Wurst, Van Empel, and Marianne Vos. Top 5 places at the moment. Some gaps between them, but no surprise, 4 Dutch riders among the top 5 here so far on lap number 1. These are the barriers on the backside of the course.
Looks like Lucinda's been driving hard on the front to catch Magali, but I have a feeling that this is just the beginning of the lead changes that we're going to see on this course. This is a big front group.
This race was first held back in 2017. That year won by Sonny Khan. Following year, Marianne Vos won in 2018 when you were second, of course. And then the most recent edition was 2019, won by Katarina Nash. And then last year's race canceled because of the pandemic. We've seen different conditions over the years, from hot, humid, dry, and dusty to wet and rainy. Today we kind of have the best of both worlds. Yesterday it was very hot and humid out here, but on Thursday they had torrential rains which really soaked the course. And we had the rain earlier this morning, but the wind has started to dry things out.
There's a pretty legitimate threat of rain, but it's really hard to count on anything, especially in the Midwest. I think anything can happen with the weather.
Yeah, the weather changes so frequently, and sometimes the forecasts just are not that accurate. And we do have a slight chance of rain throughout this race and then the men's race that will follow. About a 20 to 25% chance. Stronger storms are supposed to move in later tonight and tomorrow, so they may just catch a break as they come to the end of lap number 1. And it clocks in at just over 8 minutes with this front group of some pretty powerful names that are all bunched together, led by Rochette of Canada, who has pretty much led from the outset.
I was speaking to Tom Price of the Trek Factory Racing team about what strategy the Trek women are running for tires, and it looks like they have both of their bikes set up with dry tires right now, but they also have wet tires in the pit. Should it start to rain, they'll switch to those.
And tire selection and the equipment so important in this race, and getting things dialed in, especially for the season opener.
Yeah, for those who are new to cyclocross, tire pressure is probably the biggest conversation point of any pre-race routine, and even half a pound of pressure can make a very, very big difference in your bike's performance. So no stone goes unturned. Looks like an attack from Sonicon.
And getting some movement here at the front. Castellun now rotating to the very front here, but it's still a big group out there. And there is Betsema, number 2, Janice Betsema from the Netherlands. Now the leader here early in lap number 2.
Again, Rochette, drop it back a little bit. I think that's all part of the plan. And to
You've obviously had a lot of success on this course. What do you think, given the conditions, is going to be the key to today's race?
I think different than years past, the trend has been that these races are going longer for the women than they used to, and I think you know, staying consistent and not getting too caught up in the drama of the early laps is going to be huge, especially on such a technical course. It's going to become really easy to make mistakes later on as you become fatigued. So I think just, you know, as they say, slow and steady.
Fitness is so important. Some of these women coming off the mountain bike season, others coming from road racing, so the fitness should be there for a lot of these riders. But again, first race, new discipline, new season, many of them coming over from Europe. There's always those variables and those unknowns that you're trying to get a handle on early, right?
Absolutely, and I think on a course like this where it is very technical, it's easy to almost over-rely on your fitness, and then if you're not super focused on, you know, technical finesse, it's really easy to burn a lot of matches and still come up short, because obviously everyone in this race is so physically fit. So it really comes down to the other little details.
Denise Betsema at the front. Again, number 2 from the Netherlands. The powerhouse Dutch squad with 11 riders in this field. Marianne Vos is still up there. Number 1 in the rainbow jersey is the defending world champion, Lucid De Bruyne. Many of the high-profile, best names in the field are well-positioned in that front group. We've seen in the past in both the women's and the men's races where you'll get 1 or 2 strong riders. They go off the front and you never see them again. It's essentially an individual time trial at that point, but it doesn't look like it's going to develop that way for these women here today.
No, I think we have such a strong field that the gaps between the riders are going to be much smaller, and especially with the conditions today being fast and tacky, I think that we're going to see really close racing.
Ellen, what do you think we'll see from some of the riders who are coming off a mountain bike and others like Marianne Vos, who just completed the road seasons and literally a week ago were racing at Paris-Roubaix, as they make the discipline change to cyclocross? How tough is it for them?
I think that there are pros and cons to both. I think for a rider, you know, like Vos, for example, who obviously just finished a huge event last week, I think for her, kind of a bike is a bike, and she's done this enough. But for other riders, I think it can be really challenging because they're finishing up a really, really daunting season, especially post-pandemic. So I think some riders are going to be really tired, whether physically, emotionally, or both. So I think it can be, yeah, a little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, Marianne Vos, you could almost blindfold her, take her to the start of a race, not tell her what kind of race or what kind of bike she's riding, and she still finds a way to be at the front.
Absolutely. I think the same goes for Jolanda Neff. There are just some riders that I think, yeah, if it has 2 wheels, they're going to find a way to win on it.
Yeah, Jolanda Neff running in the top 10, and that is no small feat. Wearing number 51 today and winning that race here on Friday. Yes, it wasn't the same World Cup field she's competing against today, but that elite C2 race that she won was her first time back on a cyclocross bike in 2 years. Not her first time racing, not her first time training, her first time on a bike, period, in cyclocross, and she still won the event.
Absolutely. I mean, I think she really displayed a really great showing during that race, and I think she probably had more complicated traffic to pass because it was less of a World Cup field, so she had a lot more riders to have to deal with, so I think she's well practiced for today.
Yeah, that was her concern coming into today's race, the fact that she was starting in the back of the field without World Cup points, and she was going to have to pass so many good riders, but doing a lot of the heavy lifting in the opening lap. And boy, what a tremendous ride, and now we're seeing this group of 4 at the front get a little separation. The world
Dutch
champion is here.
Taking off.
Yeah. All 4 of these riders from the Netherlands, which is no surprise as they hit the barriers. So Betsema leading leading the way. Wurst in second, number 3, number 1, Lucid De Bruyne, and number 7, Marianne Vos. Those are the front four, all 4 Dutch riders. And this is the gap back to the next group, 5th place and beyond. Still on lap number 2 here in this first Women's Cyclo-cross World Cup race of the new season. 15 minutes into what should be about a 50-minute race overall.
So this is Factory Hill that the riders are riding right here, and in my experience racing this race, it can be pretty key. This is where I officially lost Marianne Vos in the last lap of the year that I finished second, and it can become very easy to mess up this hill when you're super tired. So I'll be curious to see how things play out for the riders in the future laps.
You've got good company. You weren't the only one who lost Marianne Vos at one point or another. What's the most challenging thing about this hill, and what's the reason that you lost it?
The hill itself isn't super challenging. It's pretty straightforward, but if you go too far off to the left, it can become really steep, and that's exactly what happened to me. I just sort of went a little bit off the line and kind of spun out, and you know, when we were racing for a matter of seconds. And that's where she was able to make her pass. And truth be told, probably would have been the same outcome anywhere else on course, but I just know that it can be really tricky.
All right, that's 2 laps down, 6K in. 4-rider lead group, all from the Netherlands, and then the next about 5 seconds back for 5th place through 8th. So you can go 10 places deep, find riders within a dozen seconds, and it's still Jolanda Neff of Switzerland riding in a top 10 position right on the number. So at this point, in your estimation, Ellen, you see the time gaps here as they head out on lap number 2. How far back can you be at this point, considering who's at the front, and still have a shot at the podium?
I think it's super course dependent. I'm still trying to kind of figure out exactly, you know, how tight this race is going to run. But you know, there are some courses where 3 seconds can feel insurmountable, and there are some courses where 30 seconds is still totally doable. So I think on a race like this, it's going to be probably somewhere in between. So I think we can see somewhere, you know, maybe even into 20 seconds back that could be able to come back. But I think it's going to be really dependent on how much work they're putting in on the front too, and how much cat and mouse they're playing.
Denise Betsema, number 2 for the Netherlands, once again at the front here.
Looks like that chase group has made contact, or at least some part of the chase group has made contact with the front group now.
Now they were only a handful of seconds back at the start of lap number 2, and now it does look like we have a longer single file line as they head up the hill here. Everybody back off their bikes. Betsema first, Brand, then Marianne Vos on the left-hand side, number 7. Number 4 there, Castellin, who led early on lap number 1. Rochette, who was also up there leading for a good portion of that first lap, has dropped back into 10th place now, the Canadian.
Looks like Betsema is back on the front turning the screws, but I think with riders like Lucid De Bruyne and Marianne Vos behind you, a little gap like that is more likely to be maybe them just relaxing and trying to take a little bit of a breath than I wouldn't imagine that she's going to be doing too much permanent damage to these 2 riders.
Yeah, you got to think if it's somebody like Brand or Vos, that this is still a good spot for them. I mean, the leader is just a second or so away, so things are kind of settled down. No heavy tempo that they have to deal with, or a group ahead of them. This is a pretty good sweet spot to be in.
Absolutely, yeah. They kind of have the course to themselves. They're not dealing with a ton of riders trying to chop them or anything like that, but I also think that, you know, they know that it's going to end up feeling like a pretty long race, and they don't need to get caught up in the fuss too early on.
And this is the first of a long season. The first of 16 races, and the first of 3 over the course of this next week that will be held here in North America. From here in Waterloo, Wisconsin, they will head south to Fayetteville, Arkansas for a midweek race on Wednesday. That'll be a preview of the World Championships on the same course at the end of January. And then it's back north to the traditional North American stop in Iowa City a week from today before they pick up and head back to Europe for the remainder of the World Cup season prior to returning for the World Championships. This was an expansion of the Cyclo-cross World Cup calendar they were hoping to have last year. The pandemic ruined that, so it was delayed by a year, but now expanding the sport and the discipline here in 2021 and early 22.
Yeah, it's very exciting to see Worlds coming to the U.S., and I think that the events here really show just a sample of what we can expect come January.
And the World Championships being held in the U.S. for the second time. The first time was several years ago in Louisville, Kentucky. And the World Cup has really only been coming to the U.S. for a few years as well. It was September of 2015 when Las Vegas became the first U.S. location to ever host a World Cup, as Cross Vegas debuted on the World Cup circuit. This has been such a European-centric sport. It was November 14th, or November of 2014, I should say, the first time a World Cup event was held outside of mainland Europe. That was in England. And they've been growing and expanding ever since. Just over 20 minutes in, lap 3 of 6. So they have determined that it will be a 6-lap race now after timing the early laps. That's what the women have in store here in Waterloo today.
See Denise Batesbo still on the front, still just going. Oh, it looks like she had an issue. She might have dropped a chain.
Yeah, she's off her bike now, boy. Now this could be a problem.
Yeah, this is not what you want to happen, especially with the racing being as tight as this.
Oh, that is just
terrible.
terrible
It's probably
luck.
Jammed as well. That's going to be tough to claw back from.
They're just going to ride away from her now.
All of the other riders are like, see ya.
And the fact that the quality of riders she was leading there, once they get this kind of a gap, she can never catch up.
I can't imagine so, especially with how hard she was working on the front to create even a small gap. She'll be hard pressed to close that back again.
So now it's the world champion, Lucid De Bruyne, and right behind her, number 7 in the yellow and black, is the 7-time world champion, Marie Wurst. It's a group of 2 at the front now. And Denise Betsema, who had been leading, all of a sudden it looks like her day is over.
And these are not the 2 riders that you want to pass you when you have a jammed chain.
This is where it happened. And this is the unfortunate reality of this sport. It's not like it's a 5-hour road race where you can have a mechanical and then get back up in the peloton and with the leaders later on. An issue like that in a short race like this pretty much destroys your chances.
I think the one consolation for Betsema is that it looks like she was able to get her chain back on and continue to pedal. If she has to run to the pit, then I think her day's totally over, but she may still be able to salvage a good result if she's able to continue to pedal through the lap.
And now it's just about trying to accumulate some kind of points.
Absolutely.
Even though she is likely out of a podium opportunity.
It's a long week and a very long season.
So now 2 heavy hitters doing battle at the front. Reigning world champion against the 7-time world champion. Brand in the rainbow jersey after winning the world title last year. And Marie Wurst in the yellow and black, number 7, riding right alongside her. And then behind them, you have the Hungarian rider, a national champion, Blanka Voss. She's got the green, white, and red helmet. And then number 3 right behind her, Marie Wurst, also of the Netherlands, in the red jersey, riding with those leaders as they come to the end of lap number 3. And it looks like it's going to be a 4-rider group once again, at least maybe temporarily.
It's interesting, you see Lucinda and Marianne Vos both opting to ride with a bottle and stop to take a sip. So it feels like maybe they're not super concerned with being caught by third and fourth. I think they're both pretty confident.
And as far as Betsema, it looks like she's about 10 seconds back, so she may not have lost that much time. Maybe still hard to bring back the leaders, but perhaps it wasn't that long off the bike, and maybe she's been able to make up some time here. We'll see.
And you know, it's funny, sometimes depending on how you handle a mechanical, sometimes it can be a little bit of rest that you wouldn't have otherwise during a race. So sometimes if you can just take a deep breath while you're getting your flat changed or something like that, it can actually benefit you.
And now in third place, it is number 3, Marie Wurst. Blanca Vos, number 54, has slipped back to 4th place. Brand still out front, followed by Marianne Vos. And once again, Lucinda Brand and Marianne Vos just about a second or so ahead of those other two. It looks like they're clearly stronger right now. And maybe a matter of time before they put more time into them. But as of right now, they're hanging tough to more or less make it a front group of 4.
Absolutely, and I think watching Lucinda and Marianne, they're not like trying to jockey for position. They're both taking their turns on the front without really competing too much for where they're trying to be, whereas third and fourth are sort of passing each other a lot, and that can take a lot of energy. So I think we'll see first and second continuing for quite a while.
That's Betsema there, number 2, now climbing the hill, trying to at least maintain sight of these leaders. Brand, followed by Vos. Blanca Vos, along with Marie Wurst, just a couple of seconds back in third and fourth. In a race like this, with all the technical turns and all of the features they have to navigate, how much does drafting play a role? How much rest do you get? We know how much they will receive in a road race, but in a sport like this, how much does it save in terms of energy?
I think it kind of depends. Like right now we can see that it's pretty breezy, so in some parts of the course I think that there's going to be a little bit of drafting, but I also think one advantage people don't really discuss a lot with drafting is you're also letting someone else set the pace. And so sometimes if you're on the front, you may be going a little bit harder than you need to just to stay in front. So sometimes being in second is quite nice because you sort of let them go as hard as they need to go, and you can take a little bit of a break on a couple of sections. But there are advantages as well to leading. Like Lucinda right now is able to choose her lines. She doesn't have to worry about getting caught up behind any sort of issues that could happen in front of her.
Meantime, in case you're wondering, the highest placed American is the national champion, Clara Hansinger, who is just inside of 1 minute back. 54 seconds down, 13th place right now, one of the 14 Americans in this field for the first World Cup of the season.
And there is no counting out Clara Hansinger. She is pretty notably a slower starter, but that has not stopped her from having really incredible results thus far. So I'm really curious to see where she finishes, because I'm sure it'll be higher than 13.
And Marie Wurst here in the red jersey, third on the course, and then the Hungarian under 23 champion before, Blanca Vos. And there's Betsema, number 2, who was in that group just behind.
Wow, these two have opened up a very considerable gap in a very short period of time.
And I tell you what, we're over halfway through this race. It's lap 4 of 6. Time is flying, and so are these two. I think without cementing it, it's fair to say it's going to be a race between those two riders right there, number 1 and number 7 for the top step of the podium.
Absolutely. I'm gripped by how one of them is going to get ahead from the other.
So if you put yourself in the heads of both of those riders right now, what's the strategy? What are you thinking? First, if you're Brand.
Well, I've been in Brand's position before, but at the time I was not her and was not world champion, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, definitely taking Marianne Vos to the line isn't ideal, but at this point I would be trying to find parts of the course where I know she's riding them slowly and trying to see if I feel a little bit better on them. But it's hard. Both of these riders are so incredible. It's really hard to spot their weaknesses.
Well,
but it did look like they just sat up.
Well, the chase is now on behind them. They've been joined by Marie Wurst as well, so it's now a group of 3 at the front. And Wurst has actually ridden to the front. Now, this was the section where Betsema had that chain issue before that's cost her some time, but now she's not too far back either.
I'd like to say what Marie Wurst just did is incredibly valuable. She caught the front group and kept moving. What can be really detrimental for riders is to catch a group and then sit at the back and constantly get yo-yoed, and she's doing so much more work than the riders on the front. So for her to go through to the front is probably going to pay dividends.
And Denise Betsema is leading the group just behind. She's in 5th place right now, half an hour in. Still a little bit of time to make up, but considering where she seemed like she was headed after that chain issue, she's done a tremendous amount of work, showing her strength, her robust resilience to almost pull that front group back. Wow, she has caught the front group.
She brought Yolanda Neff with her.
Yolanda Neff, number 51 there. Betsema, number 2.
This is a star-studded front group.
That is remarkable. You look back from where this race started and the fact that, first of all, Betsema lost the time she did with the chain issue. Yolanda Neff started so far back in the field, racing a cyclocross World Cup for the first time in 2 years, racing a cyclocross bike for the first time in 2 years. And both of those riders are in this front group in the second half of the race.
It's also remarkable, Helene Clauzel started the race in second and was second for most of the first lap and then disappeared for a while and has now clawed her way back to the back of this front group. You really can't count anyone out at this point.
And it's the Hungarian, Blanka Voss, who's now at the front there in the green, white, and red helmet. It's a group of 7 at the very front. Marianne Voss sitting in second in the yellow and black. So what do you think it was more of? Were Voss and Brand just kind of dialing it back for a moment, or was it just the work of the chase group that brought everybody together?
Yeah, it could have been a little bit of both. I know that when Marie Wurst caught them, it looked like they had really, really sat up, but you know, it's hard with riders that are so composed because it's kind of hard to tell sometimes just how hard they're pedaling. You can't really see it on, you know, someone like Voss's face, just how much effort she's giving.
So when they come around to the start-finish line, they will have 2 laps left to go. And they are approaching that now. They have that tight turn to the left here that leads them back onto the pavement, and the start of the penultimate lap here in Waterloo. A group of 7 at the front. Voss, Neff, Betsema, Lucid De Bruyne, Marie Wurst, Clauzel, all bunched together. Yolanda Neff has that blonde hair flowing out the back of the pink helmet. And what a story she is. We mentioned earlier how she is the reigning and freshly minted Olympic mountain bike champion from Tokyo. But prior to that, she had months off because of some serious injuries. And you know what she went through, Ellen. She's a multi-time world champion on the mountain bike, but was off the bike earlier this year for 2 months after winning this race here in Waterloo back in 2019. Had a ruptured spleen, broken rib, collapsed lung because of a training ride on the mountain bike earlier over the course of the summer. Also broke her hand, but despite all that happening earlier this year, she still came back to win the gold medal in Tokyo at the Olympics.
Absolutely. It's remarkable what she's been able to do, and I think maybe is a testament to just how valuable sometimes a little bit of rest can be for people.
And now Lucid De Bruyne, after the brief moment where she was able to collect her breath on that last lap, she's started to drill it once again, turning the screws on the others.
This is a really impressive performance from Lucinda. She is really a great technical rider, I think much better than people give her credit for, but absolutely she's just so very strong. And so to see her performing so well on a course that doesn't allow your fitness to shine as much as others is really, I think, really a testament to how much work she's put in technically.
6 Dutch riders in the top 10 places here on this second to last lap. They are such a powerhouse over the course of World Championship history. They have 29 medals, 11 golds. And in fact, the Dutch women swept the podium each of the last 2 World Championships. And they've won 8 of the last 9 medals given out at the World Championships over the previous 3 years in cyclocross. And looking for a strong start to this new season on the World Cup. Lucid De Bruyne, who is the reigning world champion, also won the Cyclo-cross World Cup Series a year ago. And setting the tempo at the front, trying to create a gap to the others here as she hits the long stairs.
You know, it's hard to tell. There's been a lot of little moves, a lot of little gaps throughout this race, but I have a feeling that this could be some considerable damage if Lucinda keeps on the pressure.
Marianne Vos still in second place. Then Jolanda Neff there in third. The Hungarian coming through the frame in fourth.
Again, Marie Wurst has dropped back a little bit.
Well, it seems like over the course of these last few laps, when Brand has wanted to go, she's been the strongest. Others have not been able to hang with her. Marianne Vos, who's been the closest to her, 4 out. And he's currently in second place, has had the best shot it has seen, but it seems like Brand definitely has the legs, the fitness, and the robust energy that's on a different level today.
Absolutely. I think, you know, it's possible maybe she's been kind of testing the waters and she's wanted to see maybe if she could get away without having to really go super far into the ride, and hasn't been able to do it so far, but it looks like this time she might be really going in to get a little bit of a gap.
If you're Marianne Vos in second place, would this type of gap be opened up if it was anything other than her just kind of remaining patient, or is this a sign of concern for Vos?
Yeah, I think this is a little bit of a concern. You can see that she's really starting to put in. She's looking at where Lucinda is, so I think she's really trying to take stock. Yeah, I think this has really started to sound the alarms for the riders.
Betsema there, number 2, who had the chain issue on the lap a couple of laps ago. 5th of 6 laps, Brand with about a 5-second lead on Marianne Vos. And boy, Vos has had a lot of close calls lately, including at the World Championships, where she finished in second and finished in tears as a result, even though she's been such a decorated rider over the course of her career, won so many World Championships in different disciplines. It still hurts to come up just 1 place short, doesn't it?
I think she said when second's that close, it hurts. Or when first is that close, it hurts.
Yep. But chasing her fellow Dutch countrywoman Lucinda Brand here. Gonna be a heavy lift, but not letting her ride away with it by any means.
Absolutely not. This course can be so deceptive because it can really compress on itself, so it's hard to tell just how far the gaps are when it's so technical like this.
Brand and Vos, and then a pretty significant margin back to this next group.
Both of those riders had to fight to make up a lot of time, and I think that effort is showing now. Yolanda and Denise.
And it was clearly when these two, Brand and Vos, were caught on that last lap. Now that we've seen this, just an indication that they kind of backed off the gas a little bit and saved something for this point in the race. And now Brand has been caught by Vos. And this is going to be interesting. Next time around will be 1 lap left to go, with 2 marquee names, heavy hitters set to battle it out on the final lap.
Yeah, and I think we're in for a real show, because maybe when those 2 were off the front before, it was just a little too early for them to be solo, and it might have been easier for them to let the group catch them, but they've shown that they're just absolutely far and away the strongest riders in this race.
Victorious. She knows when and how and where to put the power down. And Vos being the
Now Lucid De Bruyne would love to get the win here in this race, where she has never won before. Marianne Vos, a past winner from 2018. And it's always special to win in the World Championship jersey. Kick off the season right.
Especially for Lucinda here in Waterloo, Wisconsin at the Trek Bikes factory. I think it would be extra special. I don't want to jinx her or anything, but I know that it would certainly be an exciting time. I know it was exciting for Tone Arts when, as a Trek athlete, he won here back in 2018.
All right, Tone Arts, the former champion here as well. We will see him in the men's race coming up in just a little while. The men will follow about a half hour after the completion of the women's race. 40 minutes in, and 1 lap left to go. Brandon Vos, first and second. And then, how about this? Denise Betsema, number 2 and 3rd. Yolanda Neff, number 51 and 4th. There's the bell for the final lap in Waterloo. And Marie Wurst in 5th place, 10 seconds down. So top 5 separated by 10 seconds. The first 2 clearly seem to be the strongest. So what's going to be interesting, Ellen, is the fact that we could see 2 distinctly different races that are equally compelling.
Yes.
The race for the win between Vos and Brand, and the race for the final spot on the podium that will feature Betsema, who looked like she was totally out of a podium spot a few laps ago when she had the chain issue, but now she is in 3rd place.
Absolutely. We have 2 really incredible races going on right now, and one thing I have to say is I know Yolanda Neff is so sensitive to the energy of the crowd, and racing here at the Trek factory, I have a feeling that I think she has a couple extra watts that she's going to get on this last lap to hopefully surge forward and get that final podium spot.
Not a huge distance between 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th right here.
No, even so much so, I actually saw Marianne Vos look back over her shoulder, just here again, which is kind of surprising. Typically, racers try not to pay too much attention to what's going on behind them, but...
And it's going to be a group of 4.
Wow.
This is crazy. Like quality racing.
Absolutely shocking. This is an incredible race unfolding before us.
The last few laps, when Brand has wanted to drill it and drop the other, she's been able to do it. But in the last few laps, we've also seen a regrouping to some extent. The last lap, it was 7 riders. Now it's a group of 4. I think it's pretty clear the podium's going to come from these 4, but now, boy, oh boy, what is going to happen from here as Neff has a little bit of trouble as she gets off her bike for the run-up.
I think maybe has Lucinda possibly been just testing the water. She knows she's able to get away, and that maybe she's testing out her last lap strategy. I'm really curious how the next 8 minutes play out.
That could definitely be a possibility, but boy, isn't it also risky when you bring the others back?
It is, yeah. I really am so shocked about how this is all playing out, and I can't wait to hear how everyone's been feeling throughout this whole event.
I mean, there's a reason we see some of the top riders, if they have a chance to bury the others early and ride away solo, that they do it, because you take the variables out of play. Mechanical issues, flat tires, things like that. So when you invite the others back in, you're taking a chance, no doubt. And now Yolanda Neff has dropped back just a little bit. As Denise Betsema in 3rd place here. Here's the question that I have, Ellen. How much energy did she use as now Marianne Vos rides to the front? But how much energy did Betsema use to try and close the gap after her mechanical issue?
Probably quite a lot. But it looks like she's able to sit pretty comfortably in 3rd right now. But I'm really curious to see what Vos is about to do on the front. That is not a sight you want to see, is Marianne Vos standing up on the pedals.
Boy, these 4 riders at the front, with Yolanda Neff riding in 4th place right now, and then you have Wurst here in 5th. But so many incredible individual stories. And now Vos at the front, Lucinda Brand 2nd, and Denise Betsema 3rd. And Betsema finishes where she is now. That has to feel like a victory, considering what could have happened with that mechanical issue, just to be on the podium.
Yeah, absolutely. And Betsema's been very, very consistent this year. She's raced 4 times, had 4 podiums and 2 wins. So I think, you know, consistency has been the name of the game for honestly all of these riders. They're all so consistent that, you know, it's always safe to assume that they're going to be at the front of these events. So this is not a surprising combination of athletes here.
All right, so prediction time. What's going to happen with these 3? Where does the winning move come? Or does it come down to a 3-up sprint at the line?
I don't think that anyone wants it to be a 3-up sprint. So I'm expecting them for Voss and Brand to try to drop Betsema. But the sprint is really, really hard here. So I think that there's going to be a move going into Factory Hill. Probably by Voss, trying to lead into the hill.
Just over 45 minutes in. The most recent lap was significantly faster than the previous lap. And now Betsema comes to the front here, followed by Brand and then Voss. The chess match is on.
You do not want to sprint against Lucid De Bruyne, and you do not want to sprint against Voss. I think you're 100% right. Betsema has to try and get them to look at each other and stop looking at her. If you want to get the Cyclo-cross World Championship.
So Denise Betsema, who, given her ability, had she not had that chain issue, maybe would have the strongest ride, the legs to win it. Does she still have that? That's the question. How much energy did she use earlier? She's back at the front, but when Brand and Voss really turn the screws, can she respond? That'll be the big question. Meantime, Yolanda Neff, who was with this front group at the start of this final lap, now has dropped back. It looks like this is going to be the podium. It's just a question of in which order. And now it's Brand back to the front. Betsema in second, and then Voss third. What a way to kick off the World Cup cyclocross season. First of 16 races, beginning things in Waterloo, Wisconsin. 4th edition of this race on a perfect October afternoon for racing. And we have seen a quality women's race to get things going. And the most exciting part could be happening here in mere moments. Huge crowd at this tremendous course. Over the barriers, back on the bike, and Brand still at the front.
This is just incredible. This is such an exciting race, especially for a season opener with so many unknown quantities. I can't wait to see how it turns out.
Lucid De Bruyne, reigning world champion, the reigning World Cup Series champion. But now here's Marianne Voss, shoulder to shoulder with her, the 7-time world champion, almost colliding with the barricades there to the left. Got pinched a little bit. Brand, the reigning world champion in the rainbow jersey, at the front here, trying to win this race for the first time. Marianne Voss trying to win it for the second time.
This is the final feature.
And now here comes Voss, trying to make the move to the front.
Wow.
She gets by Lucid De Bruyne.
Pretty soon they're going to run out of real estate because the final turn onto the pavement, it's so short to the finish line that it's really going to come down to whoever takes that final corner the best and with the most speed. You don't want to try to come inside anyone on that last corner.
Marianne Voss at the front. Lucid De Bruyne in second. They have that left-hand turn, and then it's the straight line to the finish with the sprint. Voss is going to drop Brand. Marianne Voss, a week removed from riding Paris-Roubaix, and she's the winner in Waterloo for the second time. Brand second, Betsema third. Once again, it's a Dutch sweep of the podium in Wisconsin.
So incredible, so well played.
Yolanda Neff, Olympic mountain bike gold medalist, just off the podium in 4th. And Marie Wurst will complete the top 5. But what a ride, what a race, and what a finish.
That was incredible.
mid-season 4.
Yes.
I mean, this is the kickoff to the Cyclo-cross World Cup season, but that was the type of race typically you see in the mud, the cold, maybe even the snow in Europe come mid-December.
That was the World Championship race, but it was for the season opener.
A lot of twists and turns. Betsema there, number 2. What a ride she had. From that mechanical issue where it looked like she was going to be out of the picture, everybody riding by her and putting significant time into her, to the fact that she caught the leaders late, was actually in first place on the final lap. Lucid De Bruyne looks so strong, leading this race for a significant portion of it as well. But boy, when you're back on the pavement, you're not going to outsprint that woman, Marie Wurst, the 7-time world champion.
What a race. That was so amazing to watch.
So we're 10 minutes away from our podium presentation for our women.
And just as hard of an effort for, you know, all of the places.
Champions up onto the podium in just a few short moments as Fayetteville making her way down.
And Clara Hanzinger, top American, rounding out the top 12 as she finishes on the number in 12th place, about a minute and a half back.
Finishing up.
But what a ride for Marie Wurst to get the victory here in Waterloo for the 2nd time.
Former winners Sanne Cant and Katarina Nash crossing the finish line together.
Marie Wurst, you did take the win. Je hebt gewonnen hier in Waterloo. Wat een wedstrijd.
Goh, ja, ontzettend afgezien. Het was zo snel. En elke bocht opnieuw vol aanzetten en alle klimmetjes, alle bultjes opsprinten. En zeker die laatste ronde was echt alles of niets. En ja, ik ken Lucinda natuurlijk vrij goed, dus ik weet dat hij niet veel ruimte laat. En die zal ook echt strijden tot op de meet. Maar ja, ongelooflijk dat het lukte.
Dit was een van de meest opwindende wedstrijden bij de vrouwen ooit, denk ik. Waar we nu naar mogen kijken hebben.
Ja, nou ja, ik heb afgelopen jaar ook wel heel veel mooie wedstrijden gedaan en gezien. Maar ja, dit was wel, ik denk ook mooi om te zien, maar ook mooi om te beleven.
Wat een manoeuvre deed je daar nog aan de Factory Hill. Je probeerde er nog voor te glippen, maar ze deed toch net op tijd de deur dicht.
Ja, ik denk dat we een beetje elkaar raakten een paar keer. Maar ja, je wilt gewoon allebei de ideale lijn. En ja, mooi als je zo'n gevecht kunt uitvechten.
One question in English. What a performance today. What a race. It couldn't be a better start of the World Cup.
No, I'm incredibly happy. I couldn't believe to start off like this. And well, I went here and in the first lap I wanted to move up and to get in a good position, but I couldn't expect I would end up racing for the win and taking the win in the end.
It was also a little bit of poker game, eh? I saw you breaking even in the pit zone.
Well, yeah, but it was so hard. So it's so difficult to do full gas all the time. So I had to take a breath, and yeah, you could see then from the back they were coming back. But when Lucinda in the final again opened up the gas, we had a slight gap, and then I was trying to race for the win with the two of us.
Enjoy the win. Looking forward to Fayetteville already.
Well, first enjoy this and recover a bit, but yeah, looking forward as well.
Enjoy.
Well, Ellen, just the patience that she showed throughout the race, just kept herself in position near the front, but maybe even surprised herself, as she said in that interview, to a certain extent, to be able to get the win, but probably not a surprise for these other riders here.
Yeah, absolutely not. I don't think that, you know, with any of these older seasoned riders, you know, as Katarina showed in 2019 and Marie Wurst showed this year, that you can never count out a seasoned vet.
Well, let's take you back through some of the key moments of the race. And boy, it seemed like there were a lot of them as the narrative that shaped this last hour of racing was so rich in texture and the storylines and the ability that we have to point to so many different areas that turn this race in the various directions we saw it go in. Let's go all the way back to the start here. it was the Canadian early on who set the tone.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw Magali go out really hard for several laps and ended up staying in the top 10 the whole time, which is really, really incredible.
And tried to open up the significant gap early on, but the others quickly would catch up. It would be Marie Wurst there, number 3, who would lead for a short time. What were you thinking early on, Ellen, about how things were going to basically trend when you saw some of these moves being made?
I think it was pretty clear that it was going to end up being a slightly more of a group race than some of the other races that we see later on in the season when the weather gets bad. But yeah, I think a lot of riders really showed their cards, not necessarily their cards, but they showed really what form they were on pretty quickly. So, you know, we can see this was pretty early on in the race, and these were the usual suspects pretty much all the way through.
And this was Lucid De Bruyne, one of several accelerations to the front. And this was just after Besançon had that mechanical issue that we thought was probably going to take her out of contention. The way the others were riding at the time and the pace at the front, we thought that she may never see the front the rest of the day. But little did we realize that she would have the strength to catch up. Now, admittedly, some of the others like Brand and Voss kind of took the pressure off to an extent and let it settle down before they really picked it back up late.
Yeah, I think the mechanical that we saw from Besançon was probably less significant than it looked, because the camera switched so quickly after we saw her. So I think she probably got on her bike pretty quickly thereafter and didn't lose quite as much time as we may have believed.
There were several times that we saw Brand and Marianne Voss kind of get away. Others would catch up, and eventually it would come down to this final lap, and it was a group of 4, but then Jolanda Neff dropped off. It was a group of 3 with Besançon, and then Marianne Voss right there.
I thought it was over for her.
Yeah.
I was so scared.
And then Besançon knew at this point that she was going to remain in 3rd. It was going to be a sprint for the win, and right at the outset of that sprint, around that final corner, Brand didn't have it, and Voss rode away with it.
It's so cool to watch.
Now, what an easy week for Voss. I mean, she was just racing Paris-Roubaix last weekend, and just a quick flight across the Atlantic and change bikes, change disciplines, come to Waterloo, Wisconsin. Wow. Well, Besançon finishes in 3rd. What a ride after that mechanical issue. Let's hear from her.
Denise Besançon, had je die kettingproblemen niet gehad, stond je dan straks op nummer 1?
Ja, dat kun je natuurlijk nooit met zekerheid zeggen. Maar ik weet wel dat ik daarna echt wel wat krachten moest verdoen om weer terug aan te sluiten. En dat was gewoon echt heel balen. Want ik moest daarna echt bekomen. En toen werd in die laatste ronde dat gaatje gemaakt. En ja, ik was nog niet genoeg hersteld. Dus ja, je kunt het natuurlijk nooit met zekerheid zeggen. Maar misschien had ik dan wel net wat extra kracht gehad om in ieder geval met 3 naar de finish te komen.
Maar wat een wedstrijd. Je probeerde het nog in die laatste ronde ervoor te glippen, maar moeilijk.
Ja, dat zeg ik. Weet je, als je dan zo in de top van je kunnen zit, dan is het gewoon zo snel een foutje gemaakt. En ja, ik heb alsnog een goed gevoel over de wedstrijd. Ik voelde me goed. En dan is een podiumplek is goed gezien de omstandigheden, denk ik.
One question in English, Denise. Could you take the win without your chain problems?
Maybe, yeah, you could never know for sure, but yeah, I think maybe I had more power to do maybe a final trick in the last lap or something. But for now, I'm really satisfied with the 3rd place.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you.
Denise?
No, very satisfied with 3rd place.
Lucinda, ik wil je niet ontgoochelen, maar het was een fantastische wedstrijd. Hoe groot was die ontgoocheling dan zelf?
Ja, ik wist dat het heel lastig ging worden. Ik bedoel, ik heb ook Marianne zien rijden de laatste weken natuurlijk. En als het dan ook nog eens een keer zo snel ligt, dan is het heel lastig. En ja, natuurlijk is het super balen, maar ik ben blij dat ze me niet zomaar uit het wiel kletsten.
Het was toch een beetje bluffpoker tussen jullie, hè? Boeiend om te zien, hoor.
Ja, zeker. Ik denk dat Marianne nog net even iets meer trucendoos open haalde. Maar ik dacht, ik ga haar niet zomaar voorbij laten rijden hier. Dus ja, het was een serieus gevecht.
Ja, hier vlak voor de Factory Hill. Dat was erg op de limiet.
Ja, klopt. Ja. Maar ja, ik dacht dat of helemaal niks. Dus.
En dan de sprint. Je had het al opgegeven ervoor? Of had je toch nog het idee, aan die laatste bocht, ik ga er nog naartoe?
Ja, Marianne die kan gewoon steeds na de bocht net iets meer aanzetten dan dat ik dat doe. Dus het is gewoon iets explosiever. Dat is gewoon sowieso al best een nadeel, dit hele rondje als het droog ligt. Dus, en ja, na de Factory Hill kwam ze me al gelijk voorbij. En toen probeerde ik nog heel even een gaatje te vinden om er naast te komen voor de brug. Maar ja, dat paste net niet, dus ja, helaas.
We've seen that you couldn't take the win in your own track World Cup race, let's say. But it was a wonderful race.
Yeah, it definitely was. Marianne was just super strong. It's really hard to get rid of her on a course like this, especially when it's so fast. She's so explosive, and after every corner she has a little advantage in that compared to me. And at least I'm super happy that we could have such a great battle here.
Revenge on Wednesday in Fayetteville?
Yeah, let's see.
Only 3 days.
Exactly.
Good luck.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to get rid of Marianne Vos, isn't it? She's not the only one who has had that issue over the years, as Vos leads the Dutch sweep. Again, we mentioned during the course of the race that the women from the Netherlands have swept the podium in each of the last 2 World Championships. They sweep the podium today here in the World Cup season opener, with Neff and Wurst rounding out the top 5. And taking you through the top performers here on this cloudy, windy, but otherwise pretty pleasant day in Waterloo, Wisconsin. And it's just about 26 miles northeast of Madison, which is the state capital, and west of Milwaukee. What do you think, Ellen, was the most impressive thing about Vos's win to you?
I think it was really impressive that she wasn't really driving the pace throughout the race. Honestly, at a couple of times it kind of looked like she might have been a little bit down and out, and then she still ended up coming back and having such an incredible final move for the win. And so it was just I think like a perfect Vos performance where you don't really know where she's at, and then she wins in such commanding fashion.
And what a result for her, given the fact that she's had those series of second place finishes that we documented during the course of the race, and she just missed a rainbow jersey at the Road Cycling World Championships at the end of September, coming straight here from Paris-Roubaix, where she was on the velodrome just last weekend, and now back on the top step of the podium for the second time in Waterloo, Wisconsin. Now, one thing that was no fluke, these were clearly the 3 strongest riders in the race. I mean, who knows if Betsema doesn't have the mechanical, maybe she has the ability and the energy to win in the end. Hard to tell. Always hard to beat Vos, considering the form that she's had.
Absolutely, and I think something Lucinda said during her interview that's really important is that, you know, she's not quite as punchy as Vos, but as we go into these other races, they're much less punchy. So I'm really excited to see what Lucinda's able to do as well.
So Lucid De Bruyne certainly proved her strength and form here today. She led more than anybody else during the course of the race. She was at the front longer than anyone. But being front at the end is where it matters. And that's where this woman in the yellow and black winds up yet again. One of the top names in the history of the sport. Across all genders, doesn't matter. One of the best to have ever ridden a bike.
Absolutely. You know, it's inspiring to see for how many World Cups she's won. It never gets old. She's still so excited to be winning.
UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup.
So, since this is the first of 16 races in the Cyclo-cross World Cup series, that means Marianne Vos will get the first leader's jersey. And it won't be long before she's wearing that in a race, because they've got a few days and then they're back on the bike in Fayetteville, Arkansas this coming Wednesday. What's that going to be like? Typically you have a week off between races, so now you go from Waterloo and 3 days later and about 11 hours on the road between here and there, you're all of a sudden racing again.
It's exhausting. Having done it between Iowa, Cross Vegas, and Trek one year, it's very, very tiring.
Great crowd coming out to Waterloo today, and boy, was the trip worth the while. I mean, it's about a 40-minute drive or so from Waterloo, much longer than that from Milwaukee. It's a very rural area here in Waterloo, so for a lot of these fans, it took a drive to get here, but man, they saw some kind of race today.
Treating us to a great race here in Waterloo.
All right, so there's your top three. Marianne Vos, the winner, followed by Lucid De Bruyne in second, and Denise Betsema in third place. A Dutch sweep of the podium as we get the World Cup cyclocross season underway. Now for Ellen Noble, I'm Steve Schlanger. Thanks for joining us, everyone, from the Women's World Cup opener for the cyclocross campaign from here in Waterloo, Wisconsin.